Hi everyone, and welcome to this Win with Armagh podcast. We're looking ahead to the big game on Sunday. We're looking at the All Ireland final between Kerry and Donegal, and I have three GAA icons on with me to discuss the ins and outs of the game. With Peter Canavan of Tyrone, Kildare's Johnny Doyle, and Kerry's Darragh O'Shea. And Darragh, I'll come to you first. You obviously a vested interest in this game. What's the story in Kerry? How's everybody feeling?
Very quiet, understated build-up, plenty of colour around the place. Still don't know who's not injured or who's injured or who's back out of injury. A lot of the thought kind of is based around last Sunday's All Ireland final, hurling final, and when Cork were kind of turned over so I suppose so abruptly and so clinically. So there's a lot of, how would you say, trepidation. People are nervous about it, but they're a good nervous, a good nervous.
You probably get that before every big game, Dara. I'm sure before Tyrone in the semi-final and before Armagh in the quarter-final, that there's probably that sense of nerves before all them big games.
Personally, like again, the camp are very kind of isolated. To be fair, they kind of closed the ranks. But before the Armagh game, I was very nervous. I didn't think our lads were ready for it. I was less nervous against Tyrone, to be honest with you. I thought Tyrone were kind of not with all the young players coming through. I didn't think they were there yet. With the new rules, with the new manager, everything, they were probably a year away to be cooked properly. I felt Kerry were better prepared for that. But this game now again, look again, it's Donegal are very they've been around. They didn't seem to celebrate their win against Meath. It was a job done. They were getting players off the pitch straight away. They were very measured in their approach. Jim isn't smiling that much. It's a stepping stone from the way he was looking at it, and rightly so. They've unfinished business. So I think the two best teams, this year are in the final. It's going to be a shootout. The new rules have helped that. I think Armagh get a better spread of scores off their players. Kerry are kind of more dependent on a few more individuals. And I don't think fitness is going to come into it. Both teams are very fit. I think Clifford is. I think if both teams play to potential, bearing in mind what happened last Sunday, if both teams play to potential, I think maybe David Clifford might have that scope, that extra yards. The way he's playing at the moment, he can do things that no other player can do, and I think he's enjoying it as well. He's not. Last year he wasn't enjoying his football. This year you can see he is enjoying it, and I think he has that luxury of bringing other fellas into play when he has to shoot when he wants to, and Crow Park is playing very easy for him at the minute.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna talk about David Clifford. There's no point in saying otherwise. But John, I'll come to you. I suppose Dara made a point there that this is the two best teams in Ireland coming up against each other, and I think that's why everybody's so excited about this one because they have been the two best teams throughout the entire season.
Yeah, and rightly so. They are the two best, and you would be excited about it. All bearing in mind it is a final, and anything is possible. As Darragh alluded to, we were really looking forward to the hurling final. Nobody saw beforehand what happened or would preempt what happened. So, finals can throw up unsung heroes out of nowhere. They can throw up maybe a marginal call could be the difference. There's so many things come into play, but certainly, if we were to sit down and write down all the reasons Donegal were going to win, we could come up with maybe six or seven, and likewise for Kerry. And I think that's what makes it intriguing. It's just it has the ingredients to be one of the great finals, and we're all hoping it comes close to that. Whether it lives up to that remains to be seen. But I think I think outside of Kerry and Donegal, which supporters will be nervous, not sure what's going to happen. But for the rest of the country, they're looking forward to a really good game. And as Dara said, the two best teams are in the final, and that always makes for a great game.
And Peter, I know you were up in Glenswilly, was it last Friday evening, at a talk show? So what's the crack up in Donegal?
There's no shortage of confidence up there. To be honest, Sean, they're expecting to go down to Croke Park, and produce a big performance, and I think deep down they're expecting their squad to win. Of course, there's a lot of talk about David Clifford, and they would be concerned with the two Cliffords and Sean O'Shea, of course, but they believe that they will have a defensive setup. They like to get back and defend as a zone or in a zone, and they believe that Brendan McCole will get plenty of support in there when it comes to a one-on-one battle with David Clifford. So, and they do believe that they have a stronger bench as well, and I think it'd be hard to argue against that, and that the 11 subs that they had the last day against me, any one of them you would be pretty confident could come onto the pitch and do a good job for you, such as their strength and depth. So I'd say they're fairly confident in Donegal at the minute.
On the bench issue, Darragh, I suppose Kerry's hoping to have the likes of Tom O'Sullivan, Paul Geaney, possibly Dermot O'Connor, and we're hearing that as well. If those boys are all back, probably guaranteed starters if they hadn't been injured. So that would fairly bolster their options from the bench.
It was Canavan was up in Donegal. You were saying, is there two Peter Canavans up there? How much ground is he covering up there?
Donegal's beside us there, it's not too far away from us.
Right, you're there, Peter.
Oh, right.
He was on his holidays for the 12th.
People go to other places than Kerry for their holidays,
I haven't seen you down this neck. Looking forward to seeing you, Peter.
Oh, you're wrong there now. You're wrong there.
I think what you call it, Kerry's bench. Yeah, Dermot O'Connor was a huge loss from our point of view, from a Kerry point of view, because he was playing so well. That being said, Mark O'Shea and Sean O'Brien have put no foot wrong so far. If Dermot was fit to come on, he's a huge asset, but he hasn't much football played in the last month. Paul Geaney, listening to what Jack said after the Armagh game, if he was required to come on in the Armagh game, it would have been a kind of similar to what he said, that it was like Con Callan coming on from Dublin to break the glass situation. So he never tried him against Tyrone. So he must have a bit of, he is playing in training, so he's got football into his legs as well. So that will definitely strengthen the bench if those lads are back. Tom Sullivan is back. He's another established player. But I mean, it's a bit like from a Kerry point of view. Yeah, you'd have to say, looking at him on paper, the Donegal bench does look stronger. But the only thing that, from my viewpoint, is that it's a bit like Galway last year when they were forced into injury, through injuries, they were forced to play a lot of guys, and they found a lot of new players. I think Evan Looney has played very well since he started coming into the team, playing with a lot of confidence. Mark O'Shea is playing with a lot of confidence, and just from my point of view, there's a hunger to get on the pitch there at the moment. Same can be said for Donegal as well. It's that's why I said from the outset, I think the two best teams are there. It's and like Johnny said, it's the makings of a cracking game. I think with a dry ball here, we could have a cracker.
John, I suppose this game's going to be, we already mentioned Clifford. It's sort of been billed as a Clifford versus Michael Murphy showdown. And I know, listening to a few different podcasts and reading a few different things, it's basically whoever wins is going to get Player of the Year. So is it as simple as that?
Oh, well, look, it's never as simple as that, particularly on final day. But they're two massive players in different ways for both their respective teams. I mean, we've seen, maybe against Armagh, maybe David Clifford was a little bit quieter than his own high standards, that we normally see, and then as Shaun Casey comes in, I think he 10 points kicked at half time, and then you have to say, okay, we'll have to put out the fire over there, and then David gets a bit more room in the second half. I think the real strength with David Clifford is that he can be a match winner at any stage. He's one of those players that maybe you can limit him at certain times, and he can still finish. He could have a quiet first half, maybe first 10 minutes in the second half, and could still bang in 1-3 or 1-4. And I think that's the big thing with him. And as players get tired and concentration levels maybe drop that little bit, that's when David Clifford is really dangerous as well. So, and then I know they're a little bit different, but like we've seen the Michael Murphy story is really phenomenal. You know, he's been 2 years out of the game, and just comes back in as if he's just jumping back up on a bike and heading off again. He's phenomenal, really, because the mileage on his legs. He's a big man. Um, he's good in the air. He's good on the ground. He's quick off the mark. He's two great feet, and then a brilliant free taker. And the way he brings, I think it's the simplicity in how he plays the game. He just does the simple thing well every time, and that makes him really difficult. But yeah, look at they're the two big players, and but again, a final is a final. Not everything's going to go your way, but I think with the experience that those two boys have, they've been in the trenches so often, and I know Michael Murphy's a lot more, good few more years experience than David Clifford, but I think David Clifford is ahead of his time, both as a physically as a player, but also what's going on between his 2 ears. I think he's a really, really clever footballer. He can mix it any way you wanted it, and we've loads of examples where lads try to mark him tight and he can just spin him and get round, or you stand off him, and you do that at your peril. So they're the two big leaders, they're the two big players, and very easily the final could hinge on how either of them get on. But there's a lot more to the story, as we'll see as coming close to the end of the game. There's so many high quality players, so many great players to come off the bench. A lot of the talk is of Donegal's bench. I think Kerry's bench is as strong. Like Darragh mentioned a good few players. Like there's Killian Spillane, who seems to deliver every time he comes on. He's nearly a super sub. He'll get a score. He'll make things happen. So I think they're both very strong benches, and I think Kerry's is as strong. So look at, as I said, the ingredients is there, and no two better lads to lead both teams than Michael Murphy and David Clifford.
On David Clifford, Peter, I suppose Armagh and Tyrone maybe a different attempts at it. Armagh tried to double up on him nearly and maybe left a wee bit of more space out around the arc for Shaun O'Shea, while Tyrone went toe to toe, tried to stop the ball coming in man marking Shaun O'Shea and Paddy Clifford, and David ends up scoring 1-9. So it's a real headache for Jim McGuinness, and Jim McGuinness is probably the best man to come up with a way to do it, but it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, well, when Throne look back on the game, they'll be very disappointed with allowing Clifford so much space to go 1-on-1 against Paddy Hampshire, because I would say there was a goal and maybe 3 points that he got, whereby there actually was Throne players back in the D and they didn't react quick enough. They didn't get back to give Hampshire a hand. So the bodies were there. I don't think that'll happen with Donegal. The bodies will be there and they'll be very quick to double team and to force Clifford out. They will not. They're very good at cancelling out teams who are trying to kick past the ball inside to the full forward line. So I'd be amazed if Clifford actually spends that much time inside, close to the goal. I think he'll be coming out round the 40 more, and you'll see Kerry, getting a lot of their scores from there, and possibly, going for a lot of 2-pointers as well. So that will have a big bearing on the game, absolutely. But you talked about Murphy and Clifford as in vying for Player of the Year. There could be another two players going head to head if the managers decide, and that's Joe O'Connor and Michael Langan. If they happen to be paired off against each other, then that battle is going to have a massive out. The winner of that battle will have a massive outcome, because they'll be securing possession, first of all, for their team. But both of them are very strong at going forward, finding pockets of space and hurting you on the scoreboard. So the winner of that duel, if they decide to go head to head, will be massive. I would say McGuinness has a big decision to make, maybe, on whether or not he plays Caelan McGonigal, because he would be very well suited for the like of Joe O'Connor if McGuinness decided to play him. And then you're left with the question, who does he drop, because they've been going so well up to now.
Yeah, Darragh, that midfield battle, as Peter said, probably if you were picking your all-star team today, 8 and 9 would be Joe O'Connor on Michael Langan. So if it does come down to that showdown and they go head to head, it'll be interesting to see who can come out on top.
Yeah, like Peter's right. There's a lot of guys with a lot of form in both teams. Like Donegal subs, it's horses for courses here. And one guy Peter didn't mention in that lineup of players who were in the shake-up, the likes of Polly Clifford, even though he got injured for a game or two, his form coming into the game, I think there's a big game in him. But very often in finals, especially, you'll always find that it's one of these unknown players that come out and shoot the lights out, and it mightn't even be. I think the next day, you mentioned about 2 pointers there, and I don't think any team has gone out this year with a set plan to grip 2 pointers at a certain. It's the game isn't evolved, in the new rules haven't evolved enough that you can say, right, we're playing Donegal here the next day. They're going to camp in front of the goals, so we camp around there. We come out, we drop out like Peter said to the 40 and hit 2 pointers. You can't really make plans like that because you don't know what they're going to react in real time. A lot of these things, like some games, like Dublin Meath, we'll say, for example, Meath kicked a lot of 2 pointers. That was just down to wind on the day, and it just caught fire, and they kept kicking 2 pointers. So those 2 pointers come as a bonus. Like Shaun Casey's 2 pointers against Armagh were huge. Could you replicate that again? Maybe once or twice, but not to the level. So I think it's going to be a lot of shadow boxing early doors to see what's going to happen, how far Patton's. I think with Patton's kickouts and with midfield could be bypassed here. Going back to what you asked about Joe Connor and Langan are having super seasons, both of them. Langan going forward more so than the McGonagall's McGonagall's more ball winning presence. But if you go back to the semi-final against Meath in the start of the second half, Patton hit a kick about 80 yards down on top of Michael Murphy. Now Michael Murphy wasn't there, the ball actually bounced, there was no one there beside it. But it was a warning shot to me, as if to say, I can kick it this long all day long here. So what it did then was it freed up shorter kickouts thereafter. So I think there's going to be a lot of shadow boxing, and I think kickouts are going to be crucial. But do I think that the likes of Joe O'Connor, the likes of Michael Langan are going to feel their way into the game if scores. I mean, Jack, you can't disregard either. Both, like Jim can't disregard Joe, or Jack O'Connor can't disregard Langan, because he's scoring goals as comfortable as he's scoring points in this championship. So there's a load going on in this, and I just think I think early doors you're going to have a lot of shadow boxing to see what way people set up, where Murphy's going to play. Is he going to play inside? Is he going to come out a bit? And I think the first 10, 15 minutes, nobody's going to panic. Nobody's going to rush the gate here. They'll try and see what the next one is doing before they kind of implement any plans.
The kickouts, Johnny, like Darragh mentioned, Sean Patton and Shane Ryan, and with the new rules, it's forcing teams to go longer, and you have Sean Patton there who has probably the biggest boot in the country on him, so he's going to target that one possibly of Michael Murphy down the far end of the field, and Kerry. It's a different thing of trying to press a kick out, but you have to be aware that there's somebody standing on the far 45 that he can pick out.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be key. Like Kerry have aggressively went after kickouts, and it's particularly against, like we seen what they did to Ethan Rafferty's kick out, and he's one of the best in the business too, and the joy you got off that, who as well has a massive boot on him. So I think that's in the locker for Kerry. But as you rightly point out, they are going to be aware that Patton can go as long as he can, and if you give him that space one on one with Michael Murphy and he's landing on the far 45, it gives a great launch pad to Donegal. So that's going to be intriguing what way that works. And Patton he's had a brilliant year, but he has had a couple of against Monaghan, give away the goal early on. He's a couple the last day against Meath where they put him under a bit of pressure, and I think 2 or 3 went out over the sideline. So all these things are going to play a part in it, and I think it's going to be, both keepers are going to have to mix their game. You will go along at times, you will, and like it's very very difficult to come up with 3 or 4 different kickouts, particularly with the new rules that are going to work. Someone takes their eye off a cornerback, and all of a sudden he's a yard, and both Shane Ryan and Patton are confident enough to give him that ball. So I think it's going to be a mixture of everything, and again, that's going to make it again make it very intriguing to see what happens. But a small mistake by either keeper, which we've seen in the past in big games, and the balls, and particularly with both sets of forwards in the form they're in, half a foot one way or the other could decide this final, and I think that's key as well.
Peter, we're talking about long kickouts to Michael Murphy. Could we see a few long balls into the edge of square to him, a la 2012 All Ireland final? It's not really a tactic Donegal have used this year. A couple of times against Armagh, maybe in the Ulster final, was about the height of it, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all, depending on who's on him. It could well be Mike Breen that could be picking him up at centre half back. And I don't know how comfortable Mike would be at the edge of the square with a few high balls in, but Donegal can play that, and it worked very well the few times they did it against Armagh. But back to the kick out option, I wouldn't be surprised to see both teams at times actually backing off and allowing the short kick out. You don't want to see that the whole game. But I know Donegal will be wary if Kerry win a long kick out and kick it in early, then there's space there for Clifford. And likewise, Donegal or Kerry will be well aware of the threat that Shaun Patton possesses with that 80-yard kick out to Murphy. So it'll be a case of picking and choosing when to push up and when to be aggressive. But you hope it's not going to be a game whereby there's going to be a lot of short kickouts. But again, especially at the start, I wouldn't be surprised.
Darragh, marking Michael Murphy is probably going to be, it's a big one for Jack O'Connor to pick who actually goes and lines up beside him, because if Murphy spends time at full forward, maybe it's Jason Foley. If he comes out a wee bit, Kerry probably don't want Foley following him out. It'll have to be switched over. So there could be a bit of mixing and matching on who picks Murphy up.
Yeah, Jason Foley is playing superb football at the moment. His pace as well, and he's physically big as well for Murphy. Like what Murphy's done this year, I remember I was involved in Aussie Rules trip out a number of years ago, and he was on the team and he was playing football. But what struck me at the time, and again I wouldn't have known the lad before that, but he strikes me as a guy. He's not a big talker in the dressing room. He leads by his actions. Doesn't say much. But came away from that trip and I was super impressed, just as a player and as an athlete, as a guy. Like he's very impressive, very understated, very unassuming, fierce, nice fella, very very easy to get on with. But what he's done to come back and do what he's doing, I mean, and the lads will tell you they played into their 30s as well. When you pass 31 or 2 or 3, to get off the ground, get a foot or two off the ground. I mean, when he came back and caught that ball in the league, there he went 2 feet, 3 feet into the air to catch a kick out. You don't do that at your age like that. And what he's done, this year has been nothing short of spectacular. To come back and he played, like even you go back to a couple of years ago when he finished, he wasn't playing near as good as he is now. So to do that has been incredible. But that being said, he's in a final as well. He's been here before. He's been here twice before. He's smart. He's going to play a percentage game. He'll wear himself into this game. You see him throwing down. What I noticed with Donegal is that any free around 45, 50 yards out, he'll put that down on the deck. He'll take that. And they feed off him as well. He won't try, like Peter said, he won't try and do anything spectacular. He won't try and do something that won't. If there's a score on, his decision making is fantastic in real time, because you're talking about, we'll say, kickouts, and you're talking about, what they'll do and the reality of it is either Jim McGuinness or Jack O'Connor won't have time to get instructions into the players, no matter what. 82,000 people there, you don't hear what's going on around you. You can barely shout at 10 yards away from you. So you have to make decisions. Players have to make decisions. I think both sets of teams have leaders throughout the field. Jason Foley being one of them, Michael Murphy being another one of them, the Cliffords, Shaun Casey, you go through the team, Gavin White, same with Donegal, even McBurty coming off the bench. So I think players are going to have to make decisions in real time here. That goes down to kickouts, that goes down to all things concerned. decision making, and it's who makes the least mistakes in this for me. So, like Peter said there, you probably will get shot kickouts early doors. I don't think Kerry can do that. I think Kerry have to attack it. Kerry don't have the luxury of doing that because they have to continue the tempo they had against both Armagh and Tyrone. I think they're going to chase everything and leave everything out there.
What sort of game are we expecting, Johnny? Because I think everybody thinks that this is going to be the classic that we probably think we deserve at this stage after such a good championship. But there will be cagey moments in it. There will be if there's, we're talking about maybe dropping off kickouts and different aspects like that. It mightn't be hell for leather for the full 70 minutes.
No, I think you're right. I think, particularly Donegal are I suppose in the old rules they were well able to mind the ball and frustrate teams, and maybe force teams to come out and try play to leave space inside. They haven't. I suppose the new rules maybe don't allow them to do that as much, but I think that's something that we might see. Like as I say, when Kerry get a bit of a purple patch, will they just get hands on ball and just mind it? Um, you know, Slow the game right down, dictate the pace of the game, and Donegal are very good at. And I think you will see some of that, and maybe vice versa. It's not something we associate with Kerry traditionally, but again, Kerry always find a way, and no, they're no better team to find a way on the biggest day than Kerry. They always seem to, you know, obviously they want to play a nice swashbuckling football, but if it needs to go any other way, they're able to do that as well. So I think you're going to see a mix, depending on what the game. If one team get an early lead, it forces another team to come out and attack the game, and so it is going to be a little bit of a game of chess. I think at times, it could easily start that way. Just ease ourselves into the game. I don't know whether it's going to start at 90 mile an hour. Obviously full house, the weather's to be good. It's murky conditions, it's warm, and all these factors will come into play. So I think you're going to see a bit of everything in this game. And as I said, we are all hoping for that classic final. As I say, it has the ingredients, but it might not work out that way for loads of different reasons. And like we talked about both benches and the impact they had. That could again, you bring on players and it just doesn't fall for them on the day, for whatever reason. And, like Paddy McBurdy's going to come on, you'd expect, but there's times the last day, it's easy to come on to a team when they were, 7, 8, 10 points up. If they're 2 or 3 points down, the pressure comes on the subs. Now you have to really make an impact, and that goes for both sides. So throwing all that into the mix, it has everything, and it has the ingredients to be brilliant. And as I say, there's going to be a bit of football that's going to be slow and cagey, and I think both teams are capable of doing that.
And lads, can't leave you go before I ask you a few questions about Armagh, obviously. And Peter, you know that the Win with Armagh campaign's well underway now, and we're trying to get the new county facilities out at St Malachy's in Portadown. And I suppose being from Tyrone and seeing the impact that their facilities like Canavan has had on the county team, both senior level and underage and everything else. Just I suppose tell us how important having a facility like that is.
Yeah, it's a great base to have. Gavahi's in the centre of the county, and from development squads, minor, the whole way up, and not just the men, the hurlers and the ladies get great use of it as well. So it's a fantastic base to have. Everyone's very central, and it has taken a lot of pressure, I suppose, off the various managers trying to locate a ground to train the way it used to be, and you could have been in any part of the county. So fantastic base to have. It's very well maintained, and I think it's been a massive help to Tyrone moving forward. And I just hope it's the same in Armagh. I really hope our neighbours in Armagh have a facility, something the same. I just hope they don't have that much success in the years ahead, Sean.
On the success there, obviously Armagh won All Ireland last year, surrendered the title this year, unfortunately, from our point of view. But do you see Armagh bouncing back? Are they going to stay at the top table for the next couple of years?
That me, is it?
Sorry, Darragh, that's you, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. I do. Armagh's panel, like, I mean, what happened to Armagh this year in that game with Kerry, it's hard to call. The same thing probably happened to Limerick this year as well in the hurling. They run out of steam a small bit. Um, they Armagh have so many good players. I mean, if you look at the games they've played and the quality of games they've played in, they're not going to go away. The quality of kickers they have, especially with the new game, they've size, they've range, they've a big squad of players. I think McGeady is crucial to that. I think depending on what he's going to do, he's obviously there's a huge buy-in from the players with McGeady, and he's brought that. To do what he's done over the last couple of years to get them to where they are, and eventually over the line and win the All Ireland. So I think they're going to be around. They haven't gone away. I think probably during the championship, I thought Dublin could have beaten them, and I think they would have taken a different route. I think had they got a kick in the backside earlier, that Dublin game in Croke Park, I think that wasn't a fair result on the overall game. I think Dublin, had they kicked their scores in the first half, Armagh would have had time to reset and rejig, and I think momentum going into games at the moment can be very dangerous if you get a false bounce, if you get what I'm saying, in the new rules in the new game, when you come out of the Super 8s and you're coming into game after game, week after week, or depending on 2 weeks, and you could get a team on a high or a low, and I think that it's very hard to find a line of form in this new setup. It's new in the last couple of years, but I just think there was a couple of dead rubbers there that went unnoticed. For example, even the Meath game there with Donegal, that was Meath's win against Galway. You know what? If teams were given the 2 weeks of a break and to reset and get their house in order, I think you wouldn't have as many shocks. No, maybe it's good for the game, but I think the GAA need to push back. They need to give us the last 3 weeks of August to get this thing right. The product is nearly there. The game is really improved. No one can deny that we've had a super championship. Footballers are really, you go back a year in Kerry there, and they were saying that Joe O'Connor couldn't field the ball, or couldn't do this, or couldn't do that. It's because we weren't kicking the ball out to him. And you need to get used to the kick out. You need to get used to the ball coming out. So the GAA have done superb in getting these rules changed, and hats off. But we need to get August back for this to develop properly, and for this to manifest itself in all its glory. You can't rush these games out. If you had a draw in the hurling last year, as we had last year, you're rushing them out of Croke Park, and I just think it's a huge. And what Armagh are doing here to get facilities right, we're doing so much right within the GAA, but we just need a small bit of help from Croke Park now. To get that, August is the best month of the year, in my opinion, for championship football. And another thing we're losing as well, and Peter's a teacher in this, you're losing schools as well. You're losing your best asset are your schools and your kids coming through, boys and girls that are coming after us. And I think for that, you need schools, like we say, the first week back in August or in September, if you have boys and girls back in school, and if you happen to be in the All Ireland, be it in hurling and football, you can knock 2 or 3 weeks out of that, we'd say, and get them into it and start talking about the games and how it worked. And we've been using that for years and for decades and decades. And by losing August, you're losing a lot of that as well. And I just think it's not a big thing, 3 extra weeks, 4 extra weeks in the year, but you're really not giving players a chance to get themselves right. You look at the impact of injuries that we've had in this championship over the last 2 years. I think injuries cost Galway last year. They were the best team in my book last year, and they never had their best 3 players, Walsh, Comer, and Shaun Kelly on the pitch at the same time. So I just denied to get out of the way.
And Johnny, just over to you. Obviously, you worked with Geezer in Kildare. Just tell us a bit about what's he like in the changing room. What's he like as a manager?
He's as contrary as you see him off the field. He's very same. No, Kieran is he's a great guy. I suppose when Kieran came first in '08, we were sort of had plans to build our centre of excellence, and he rode in behind that along with our county chairman Sil Mearns at the time, and Pat Mangan of the supporters club. And he was a real drive. He saw the value of not just for the senior team, but our 20s and minors, and right through our development squads, that we had a home, we had a base, and it was important for the next generation, because the conveyor belt has to keep going. And But look, you know, Kieran's legacy has been well documented. He's very driven, very passionate person. You know, doesn't take excuses, but will work with players. You know, sometimes with Kieran, you think, look, at the bus is going this way. To get on the bus or don't get on the bus, no matter who you are or who you think you are. This is the way. No, if if there's issues that prevent you getting on the bus, we'll help you, but you have to want to get on that bus, and that's the big thing. You know, I think he brings. He'll help players. He's a players manager. He want to get the best down. He will challenge you and put you in positions where you're uncomfortable. But he's very fair, and he'll be direct, and he won't beat around the bush. And I think players appreciate that. Sometimes you maybe don't like hearing the truth, but I think that's what players want is, you know, there's no bull with Kieran. It's if he sees something, he'll tell you, go away, do something about it and come back, and that's the way he is. But look, we were obviously last year we were all very excited about Armagh winning here in Kildare. You know, Julie Davis was involved with us, and Hugh Campbell, so we felt we had a little bit of a reason to cheer for them. And you know, but this year, I suppose the drive for Kieran would be, you know, as I mean, he mentioned before, it's someone said great teams win too. So I'm sure that that's still in the back of his mind, and looking to do what you're doing up there to get your centre of excellence. I think it's hugely important for, you know, to put structures in place that when these people move on, whether they're, you know, managers or players or county board delegates, that the structures are there to continue to the county to develop. And I think getting a new centre of excellence for Armagh is huge, and we wish you the best of luck with it.
And one last question, lads, before we wrap up, and this is the most straightforward question of the podcast. And Peter, I'll start with you. Who's going to win All Ireland?
A lot depends on those injured men that Kerry have, whether or not they're fit to figure it at any stage. The turnaround in Kerry has been remarkable in this past 3 or 4 weeks. Bear in mind, some past players were writing them off and saying that the sooner they were beat, the better, that they could enjoy the summer. So it's been some turnaround. They've got some fantastic players, but I think Donegal have the team to match up to them, to nullify their key threats. And I do think that they have a stronger bench. So for me, it's Donegal to shade it.
Darragh, how do you see it going?
I just we were talking about McGeeney there before we finished with McGeeney, just very briefly. Contrary to popular opinion, McGeeney actually does laugh and he does have a bit of crack now and again. I was in America with him on 2 different weekends. I was in New York with him one weekend, and I was in Chicago another weekend. And he's good crack now. He's into things that he'd be out late and stuff like that, and I was doing the touristy thing. But he's actually good crack when you get him out.
Yeah, I recall he actually laughed one night as well, Darragh. I seen him laughing.
Yeah. But I think that's when you bought around, Peter. I'd say that was different. That was funny for everyone. The going back to Kerry, it's like Peter said, it's a very tight one to call. Kerry's turnaround has been huge and it's been remarkable. Right now, there's pressure on both teams. I think there's a lot of pressure on Kerry to finish it out, because you've come this far, you've beaten Armagh, you've beaten Tyrone, and again, like it's a really hard one to do, because you go and beat Donegal now as well, which is, I think there's a lot of pressure on Donegal. I think Jim obviously, they keep going back to 14, and they haven't been back there since. So like that in itself brings pressure. Like I said, it's from the outset here. Jim is back this year, and again, it's a mission to be there. They expected to win this last year. There's a lot of pressure on Donegal, and it's a complete downer, having come so far, having done everything right, all right. So to date, I think that pressure is going to come into play on Donegal. I think fitness-wise, they're not lacking in any department. I think there's a lot of pressure on them, more so than Kerry. Kerry are in bonus territory at the moment, and I suppose, for want of a better word, Kerry have been here recently. They've won one recently, so they're kind of, it's a lot of these players will know the routine. They'll know what's involved. They know the margins. They know, outside of Murphy and McBrearty, I think Donegal are kind of, and Jim himself, there's a lot of weight coming out of Donegal, and it's very hard to stop that train as well. Even though McGuinness no better man than McGuinness to do this, I think all told, if everything goes right for both teams, I think Kerry by 2 or 3 points.
Johnny, deciding vote for you then?
I don't know. It's the best way of answering it. Look, I think it's so tight. As I said, I could give you loads of reasons why Donegal will win it, and loads of reasons why Kerry. And yet we haven't mentioned the referee either, who's a Kildare man, Brendan Cawley, and in Kildare we're good at supplying referees that were involved in draws. Tommy Howard back in the Dublin Mead saga in '91 was the 4 games. He was the referee for all those games. So you wouldn't rule out a draw. But I think all things. I think two teams at their peak. I just think with the form David Clifford's in, I will give Kerry a very hesitant vote. I just think if they can get enough ball into Clifford, and Shawnee Shea has the game we expect. Paulie Clifford has more time under his belt after coming off injuries. They've a lot of pace, albeit like Donegal, but you have a lot of pace coming around that middle eight from Gavin White and Mike Breen and these guys. So it's going to be very tight. I wouldn't rule out a draw, but if you were to ask me for a name, I think Kerry might just pip it.
Well, hopefully it's as good a game as we hope it's going to be and as we've built it up to be. Lads, brilliant to hear from you. Thanks very much for coming on. And thanks to everybody that has supported the Win with Armagh campaign so far. We're about a month out from the draw for the house in Newry, so keep supporting the campaign. £20 a ticket for the house in Newry, and everybody's seen it at this stage. It's an amazing house and a great location, so everybody get involved. Thanks everybody for listening in. Thanks to Darragh, Johnny, and Peter, and hopefully we have a good game on Sunday.
Cheers, Sean.
Lads.
See you, lads.